Welcome to the Garlic Marketing Show. Ian Garlic here, and today we are going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about building up franchises. We're going to talk about how things have changed over the pandemic, and if you're implementing EOS, some of the methodologies, and if you're thinking about implementing EOS, what you probably have to do beforehand in your company. Before I start introducing and talking to Gerry Henley, remember our podcast is brought to you by storycruise.com. You know, whether you're a consultant, a franchisor, or business running EOS, video marketing has become a must. The Story Cruise is the ultimate resource for finding videographers, for finding those editors, for finding those marketers. And it's used by many running EOS, including Gino Wickman, to find the resources. The best thing is video case stories. You can use those of your customers, of your clients to 4X, 10X your sales marketing campaigns. Go to storycruise.com/EOS to get started. And after that mouthful, Gerry Henley, thank you very much for... Yeah, awesome. Well, it's great to have you. He's coming from Safety Harbor, right down the road from me, home of this year's Super Bowl. Well, right down the road from the Super Bowl. Right. But Gerry, thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here. Excited.
So tell me, let's tell, we're going to talk about, we had some interesting conversation beforehand about getting ready before you get an EOS, finding that visionary integrator role, what that is and why it's important, and how marketing has, how companies could have taken advantage of marketing in 2020 and 2021 upcoming. But before we get into all that, tell me about how you got to Safety Harbor, Florida, and doing what you do.
Well, gosh, I moved here back about 5-6 years ago now. I was recruited by a faith-based company, and working my faith in business is very important to me. And I was recruited by this company that was a large franchisor, and they really wanted someone of faith to come in and be the COO. So I accepted that and moved down here. So I came from Wisconsin, of all places. So we share that in common, but it was very cold up there in Wisconsin, but it wasn't like I had a drive to get to Florida. I got to get out of this. It was job opportunity. And so I did, and moved down here, and was single at the time, and ended up getting married down here and settling in, and settling into what I love, what I'm doing right now. And I couldn't be in a better spot all the way around. So it was a great move for me.
And so tell me about what you do now, because we're an EOS implementer. You're kind of shifting off of that. Tell me about what you do and how you help companies.
Yeah, well, let me give you a little background about that journey. One is that at the company I was working with, we were growing quite rapidly, and we recognized, that we needed a new business system, and we were looking at scaling up. We were looking at EOS. And we settled on EOS. And so we went into full implementation on EOS. And it was like, crack cocaine to me. Not that I know anything really about that. Want to qualify that. That's just a saying. I just totally loved it. Our whole team, what it did for our team. And I went to Chris White, who's a implementer here in Florida. That's who we use. And after we got through that, went to him. I said, Chris, I really love this. I kind of want to do this, And he just got a smile, and he goes, well, you won't be the first integrator that decided to go out and do this. And I said, well, great. And then we talked about my experience in franchising. So I am a CFE, which is Certified Franchise Executive, and I love franchising. I love franchising done right. I am well known for my operational excellence and striving for unit level performance. And, just coupled with that, I saw a lot of opportunity. So I made the jump back in October 2019. I'm going to be an EOS implementer, and I'm going to go at it. And what I discovered was there was a much bigger need to work with these emerging franchisors, which are, they're under 100 units of franchises. They're growing too fast a lot of times. They don't have a lot of support. So I was just working through all this and hearing some of their struggles and everything. I came up with my quote that is on my website is scale to get better before you scale to get bigger. And a lot of people like that. And I tell you, when I talk to people, that really resonates with them. And one of the challenges that I saw is that trying to implement full-on EOS, they weren't quite ready yet. They had a big gap between where they should be, where they are and where they should be. So I started keying in on that and, staying focused on finding my unique ability. It just evolved to where I had talked to some of my EOS mentors, and Chris White being one of them, and saying, hey, I got this wild idea, because fractional integrators, fractional COOs is a big thing, and it's a good thing because a lot of companies might not have that role. They need it, or they do have someone in integrator that needs a lot more grooming and coaching. So I kind of serve as that intermediary now of meeting the customer where they're at. And if I have people that need, want and are ready for full-on implementation, I refer them to other implementers now. And I like to work alongside them. So my focus has changed. That's where I'm the most valuable. That's my love, my passion is operations. I didn't see that. That's why I wanted to be as an implementer. I didn't see that before. But now that I've been able to embrace EOS and utilize that, my gratification comes to working with these teams and getting them, to where scale to get better, and they're at the better. And now go with full EOS implementation.
Nice. And so let's talk about what are those signs that someone's maybe not ready for EOS. And, and if you don't know what EOS is, we've got a few other episodes that, you can watch. So I won't get deep into the entrepreneur operating system from Gino Wickman, but tell me a little bit about, where are those signs that, hey, we're not ready for EOS?
I think my approach, I discover that I do, especially in franchising. Again, my main area is franchising. And what I do is an assessment. So I'll use the franchising as an example of these assessments, but I do tailor it to outside of franchise. I can use the same thing. But in franchising, it really boils down to how successful your franchisees are at the unit level. So I got this little quick thing that I came up called unit level success ratio. I go in and say, okay, tell me how you're serving your franchise. Tell me about your training. Tell me all your bandwidth. So basically look at the accountability chart, and more times they don't have one. So if I go in and I be able to pinpoint where they're struggling, but I focus on that, we got to find out where you're at, look at where you should be, then we talk about where you want to go, which is kind of a tenet of EOS. As you're burning through, you got your 1-year execution to your 3-year vision to your BHAG. But then I break into that gap analysis about where they should be, and I assess that. And I could come out and say, hey, great, you're ready for a full on, you got all this, you got this. Because if they don't have that and there's a big gap there, they'll typically end up getting very frustrated with trying to implement EOS, and the drop-off rate will greatly increase. So this way, it's like, it just starts universally. I got a client that is a marketing company that I was considering using for a client, didn't. And then he said, hey, Gerry, we need some help. I really want to do EOS, but I don't think we're ready. And I said, yeah, I agree with you. And so I spent 4 months working with his integrator to build out their accountability chart based on that. Hey, here's where, let's define where you're at right now. And the pains, integrator, of where you should be. And let's define those 2 points, okay? And then we get to the gap. So let's look at your accountability chart where you're at, and what should your accountability chart look like for where you should be. And that's pretty much, I would say, what I dial in on.
Where in this mix do you start going, hey, we need to up sales and marketing? Do you get that stuff fixed first? Or, are you simultaneously looking at sales and marketing to get that ready?
Well, I'm going to be open, honest, and transparent. Okay. Sometimes when I do that analysis, sometimes my suggestion is to slow down.
Interesting.
And let's scale to get better before we keep getting bigger. So first and foremost, I can be real good at sales and my marketing's right on, and I can sell like crazy and my marketing's working, but if I can't, my retention's, it's terrible. My customer satisfaction is terrible. My reviews are terrible. Sometimes I might need to fix that before I continue my thrust. So I think working hand in hand is kind of the same thing. So what has been interesting with the pandemic is using that same approach is I do that gap analysis, and I encourage people now to let's not get stuck. It's like Mike Tyson always said, everybody's got a great plan to get smacked in the mouth, and everybody got smacked in the mouth. They went down on the mat, the 8 count's coming. They're at 6 and 7. They finally get up and, I go back to my corner. Pretty soon we got to go on the offense. If we're going to win the fight, we got to go on the offense. And I think it's being bold enough to just let go of where I've been, let go of what I've been doing, how I approach customers, and be bold enough to say, look, we got to look at our marketing. We got to look at what we're selling. We got to redo all this and be bold enough to do that.
Interesting. And when you say bold, what does that mean? What do I have to do that's, bold and scary?
The first thing is, have no fear. Okay. Mm-hmm. But you also have to have a great leadership team to be able to have, you got to have a great team to be able to venture, go on there. And I think bold would just be no limits, no boundaries, no fear, and give yourself permission. And if I can give you a great example.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right. So one of my clients I took on when I first started was Best in Class Education Center. And they were a franchise unit, been in business for like 25 years. They had about 65 locations across the nation. And they were a brick and mortar education enrichment company. And retained me as their fractional COO and to groom an integrator and get them going. It was one of my first implementation gigs with EOS. But I recognized, we got a lot of stuff to fix here. And part of that was before the pandemic, we realized that our technical platform, our technology was so archaic and just couldn't get us where we wanted. We weren't serving the franchisees right. We didn't have good marketing for the franchisees. So we're starting on that. And then the good old pandemic hit. And I call it the complacency buster. I don't call it a pandemic. I just say in business, it's the complacency buster.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, and we were the same way at Best in Class. Okay, hey, let's just improve upon what we got, and this forced us on a path to say, okay, we got to respond quicker. We got to come up with a complete new platform. And we dared to dream. I said, starting with the visionary, the CEO, I said, you go write down your wildest vision that you can think of. And he did. And he brought it back to me because I'm just an operations guy for the execution. And I said, good, I can work with this. Let's get her done. I went back to the team. And so we dared to dream. And we came up with a brand new platform that the CEO was willing to invest in that allowed us to go direct to the consumer instead of through franchising. So now it changed everything. We had to redo our marketing. I was sharing with you earlier, this was back in September of 2020 that I executed a contract with a marketing company to get us ready to launch on February 8th from scratch. We had nothing. We had no website. All we knew was our business model, what our customer acquisition costs needed to be. We didn't know how we were going to go out to digital world. We didn't do all that, but we had to be bold enough to say, you know what? We're going to hire the best. We're going to get the best team with us, and we're just going to get at it, and we're going to make this happen. And everybody on the team was behind it. And we executed a complete new platform that's just wild technology. I mean, there really literally is nothing else out there to compare with this. We've got some new national partners, and it's going to be a really big thing. We didn't even start with redoing the platform until September.
Wow.
It's being done.
Wow. And how were you able to implement that big of a marketing strategy that fast? What were the keys, to doing that, especially like inside of the EOS structure?
Well, is it okay to give a plug here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I was on the search, and me being a fractional integrator, a fractional COO and coach and mentoring now, I totally believe in the fractional world. Whether it be a fractional CMO, which I know there's a lot of them that work in EOS. So I found this one with the company I used to work for. I'd used her a couple of times, and I turned to her, and she has a fractional marketing company. So she has a fractional CMO. She's got a stable of fractional CMOs. She's got fractional lead marketers. She's got content, got all this. So she's assembled this more of a fractional team approach. And then the company's name is Marketing Direction, located in Florida. not too far from me here in Safety Harbor. And when I was interviewing different marketing companies, I just came back to me, I need a big team. And I don't, so this would be the other thing about being fearless. Like, I don't have time to pull this aggressive timeline, which is pretty aggressive to start in September and launch this in February. I didn't have any time to miss. So I had to find this marketing company that did this, and she fit the bill. And what they pulled off for us is just nothing short of phenomenal. So, but I couldn't have done it without having the right players and all the components, And in fact, when I came across you guys, look at that, I'm thinking, wow, I love this video thing, man. We got, it's like video is king to tell the story. And that's going to be very powerful for us as we tell this adaptively story, or the education company story. But I think that was it. It's just really, don't be afraid. Well, I don't have the bench. I don't have the band. I don't have that in my account. Go find it. It's out there, especially now. Just don't be fearful. Don't get blinded by fear. You got to have the vision. We still got to have the vision that we're marching to, but create your execution plan based on what can be done, not based on what you have.
My name is Gino Wickman. I decided that I want to start to put great video content out to the world. And so the goal was one great video every week. And so I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
Nice.
That would be my biggest point.
And okay, so now, you've done this pivot and you've got this marketing plan in place and you're about to launch. And obviously EOS is about the numbers, right? And it's what you're going to track and you're going to pay attention to. And as an operations person, obviously you're probably very numbers oriented. What are
just a little bit? Call them the triple D's. As a triple D's is data-driven decisions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, data. How to make data-driven decisions. So, marketing world, there's 8,000 numbers, metrics you can run at, and some of them are trailing, some of them are leading, some you can influence, some you can't. Which ones are you going to be paying attention to in 2021 to really make sure you're on the right track?
I think number one is, especially if you're in the B2C world and even in B2B, and by the way, my specialty is service-based businesses and B2C and B2B, but service-based business. But I think customer acquisition cost is paramount. And what are you driving? What fits in your business model? When we embarked upon this new, and I had some of the team that I was with, they always come in, especially when we started looking at digital ad space, on Facebook and what doing all these other and pay-per-click. They wanted to, what's your budget and everything? And I'd say, I don't know. We've never done this before. Do you know? Well, no, we don't know. Well, we got to have a target. I said, all I can give you is my budgeted customer acquisition cost.
Nice.
That's all I can give you right now. But I know one thing, I got the team here to be smart enough to go figure this out. All I got to do is measure everything. So sometimes I might not know the benchmarks that I need to measure. I might not know those KPIs right away. The most important thing is to start measuring. So then start measuring everything. You make decisions on the fly. It's kind of like our scorecard development. It's kind of like we're talking about here as a scorecard in EOS. Mm-hmm. It's a journey. There's not a one and done on the scorecard. And any implementer will tell people that. It's like, hey, we're going to start working on a scorecard. It's living, it's breathing, it's evolving. I'd say it starts with customer acquisition cost. And because if I start with cost per click or, what's that mean? I'm not smart enough to know that yet.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that's great advice, because I think a lot of people struggle with those metrics and then they look either at too many of them or they get stuck in one. And, I see that often too. And, we're talking to clients, or I'm talking, consulting, and we see in marketing, and someone just all of a sudden pulls a metric out. And I'm like, well, why is that important? Like,
exactly.
And like you said,
the effort to measure it has to have an ROI. And sometimes people get hung up on measuring too much. You can get unhealthy with that. And you don't want to do that. And I think, and there's another example that we just learned. We thought that we do an assessment in this educational business. We do an assessment, which you call it getting to know you questionnaire, because kids, what we found out real quick in our testing and market testing was that kids don't want another test. And we were calling it an assessment. And that was like, whoa, big negative. So we came up with getting to know you questionnaire. So we thought, okay, our point, we want to drive people to this free get to know you questionnaire that tells it's an assessment. When we're talking to the parents, we talk assessment. And we were driving to that. And so we did. And we have been beta testing. So we have company-owned units in this franchise system that we converted to this new model. So we had a great world here that we could do some testing with them as the guinea pigs. My ops team over there didn't always like that. But we had like, when our preliminary runs, we had like an 80% bounce rate. I mean, we were getting phenomenal clicks to the landing page.
Wow.
But being able to, you know what? I didn't have bounce rate as a KPI right then, but we were looking at it well enough to say, well, what the heck, guys? I mean, we got X amount of people that clicked and went to our landing page, but we're having an 80% bounce rate? That can't be.
Yeah.
But we had to reshape it and kicked us into, we use HubSpot now and we do all this other stuff. We said, okay, wait a minute, we're going about this wrong. So we reshaped, and we're forgetting about all these people that need more information, aren't ready to make, because we found, okay, well, that makes sense. People like, we're asking them to take an assessment, even though it's a no obligation or anything else, they're not ready to move forward yet. So now we change our landing page and everything else. They can still move forward to the assessment if they choose to. But now we had to refashion everything to reduce that bounce rate to get people into the nurturing pool to where we can nurture them and educate them and get the sales process going more, because it might be a longer sales cycle with those people.
That's a great discovery. And it's fantastic, because also bounce rate is important there, but in a lot of industries, I see people worry about bounce rate way too early. And it's, you know, in service company, like, oh, my bounce rate's this. I'm like, well, you don't have a conversion-based website. You're not a transactional website. Like for what you all are doing, it's a transactional website. Bounce rate is super important. But if you don't have a transactional website where you're trying to lead people down that, it's not a number to watch.
Yeah, you want to measure something else. You want to measure, you know, unique visitors. You want to need this. You want to measure some other things. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I guess, you know, going back to what I'm saying is, especially in marketing and you got to be bold. You got to be brave. But you know, it's like we spent X amount of dollars the first month, and everybody was like trying to take it back to the customer acquisition cost. And I said, guys, that's not my interest right now. If we spent X amount of dollars, which is thousands of dollars, I said, I'm looking at that as paying for the learning experience. All I care about is that in these 30, 60, 90 days, right? We all say that it's 90 days. You don't go, that's the biggest thing. Everybody, they want instant results. Oh, well, let's do it for 30 days, see what happens. Like, no. So I was committed to spending X amount of dollars to do that. And I had to reshape even the team's mentality on this. Say, guys, this is test time. This is discovery time. This is figure it out time.
That's such
and we got to be able to be fast enough to pivot, to adjust, and go at it. Don't get like blinders on and say, well, this is what we said, so we're just going to keep doing this. This is what we thought was important, so we're just going to keep measuring that. No, you know, be open and say, hey, you know, the end goal is, you know what? I know what our targeted cost of customer acquisition cost is. And I honestly don't know what this major new company launch. This is a big company launch.
Yeah.
Okay. We're launching into 25 metro markets as a test market, our initial market into 25 markets on Monday. I literally don't know what our customer acquisition cost is going to end up being. But all I know is in 90 days, we're going to know that answer, and we're going to be the best we can be. And I'm going to have a reality then.
Yes.
And I think that side of it was too high, then my focus, I already know my focus got to be on organic, tell the story. And, you know, then we got to pump that side up to get it down.
That's a great way to look at it. And, you know, a lot of companies don't realize that. And that's why they say marketing doesn't work. Oh, I spent X dollars on marketing. Well, you didn't give it the time. You didn't give it the effort. You weren't open to pivoting. And a lot of them don't have a plan either, right? They're like, oh, I'll spend $5,000 if I get, you know, and they want to get a 3-to-1 return in 30 days.
Hey, you know, when you find one like that works, let me know.
Yeah.
Please.
I know. It's like,
I'll be in a lot better shape for some of my customers on doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the truth of marketing, but that's what makes great companies is that mentality, looking at the numbers, paying attention to numbers, having a long-term vision, and then figuring out when the numbers aren't right to what to turn, what knobs to turn.
But here's a beauty about doing throw this in. The beautiful thing about this is that we're doing this. We haven't abandoned our franchise model. We're just not selling franchises anymore. So we still have our franchisees. We're still totally dedicated to them, to their success. They get all the benefits of this new system over to their exclusive territories. But look at the information we're going to have from this marketing and everything else to take it down there. And that was one of our drives. Like, wow, well, we got a profit center that we can get driving revenue like crazy because of what we learn on Adaptively.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And so having, so I'm assuming you consider yourself the integrator for this company?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, with this customer, it's 3 different companies, but yes, the integrator. I have people I'm grooming underneath me for that role, but yes, I'm the integrator now.
And so, what point should a company be finding an integrator, and how do they go about to find the right one? I know that's a big one, and
my opinion is, when we look at a visionary that's finally saying, okay, I want to look at EOS, it makes sense to me. I realize I've hit the ceiling. I need to do something different. A lot of times that visionary is trying to be the integrator. So it's a VI role, visionary integrator role. You still have to have the end in mind, which is a big EOS tenet. And how are we going to get you an integrator? How are we going to get you out of the integrator seat and do that? I like to look at this to say, we have the GWC, was the get it, want it capacity that we work through and finding the right people to put in the right seats. I use another great concept. It's tour of duties. It's a great concept by Reid Hoffman, who was the LinkedIn founder, of how he grew his company. I love it. It's because it puts GWC on steroids, but it also lets you identify who can be transformed, who's transformational in your core. That I might have a manager of ops that in a year could grow through certain stages and become that integrator. Okay. So it's fueling more. And that's one of my loves and passions, is utilizing these tools. Say, let's look at who we got and let's look at who could grow and who, but it's going to be, where do they want to go? What do they say they want to be when they grow up? So the fractional part of it is that allows a company, a visionary, to hire someone in the fractional space like me. And there's many other fractional integrators starting to come out there. I mean, it just makes sense now. So that they could get somebody with my skills and experience I can really accelerate them on a fractional basis. They can afford me, and we can grow into hiring their full-time integrator or grooming somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's great. That's awesome. And I think it's the thing that almost every entrepreneur needs. And that's a way to look at it too.
Well, let's look at that fractional thing. I think that's, yes, I'm a fractional integrator, but fractional sales, fractional marketing. There's tons of people out there right now like me in those spaces that do very well. A lot of them have a good stable. It's like the marketing company that I gave you the example, Marketing Directions. There's hired guns out there like me that you can go get the job done with on a fractional basis. Don't get stuck. It's just like we were talking about. Don't get stuck about what resources you have, hey, there's opportunities. If you see this and if the visionary can see it, envision it, all I know is it can happen. All we have to do is make that jump. But as we know, the visionary is not usually the one that's great at operations and getting that execution. Now I can work aside that VI, that visionary integrator, help him, or I can serve as a fractional integrator. And sometimes I go out and find a fractional sales leader, or I find a fractional marketing person and say, hey, how are we going to get this done? What can you do? What's your cash reserve? All those things combined. How do we do this?
Love it. So if someone wants to work with you, tell us about the best way to come work with Gerry Henley as that integrator, fractional COO role.
Well, my website is Launch to Growth. It's launch and then TO, the word growth, and .com. And that's the best way. It's got my phone number on it, comes directly to me. My email is on there. My email is Gerry with a G. So it's Gerry with a G, Gerry at launchtogrowth.com.
Love it. And who's the perfect client for you?
Oh, man. I have another saying I love is recognition of the problem is 90% of the solution. And whether it's a visionary or an integrator, they got to be willing, they got to know that they have to make a change. And they're willing to and ready to. A mentor of mine in franchising, he's a big consultant, always has been. He was literally born into franchising. And when I was getting wisdom from him and counsel about doing this, he told me, he goes, Gerry, be very selective of who you choose to work with. Because if it goes south, and it's not even if it isn't your fault, it's going to be your fault.
Yeah.
So I really focus on finding that CEO that's ready.
Nice.
And I think that's anybody in EOS implementation. The CEO, the C-suite, the CEO, COO have to be ready for this.
Yep.
And the other saying is, if I got to drag them into it, I got to drag them through it. And I'm getting too old for that one, so.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I feel the same way about marketing. Yeah, it's like, if you're ready for great marketing, that's fine. You can call us, but if you're in video, but if you're not, I'm not selling you on it.
Yeah. It's great.
Awesome. Well, Gerry, it's been fantastic to have you on the show. We'll make sure to go check out launchtogrowth.com. And, once the new venture comes up, I'm going to follow up with you, see what's going on, see how all those metrics came out.
Okay. I'll be happy to share. I hope that we're going to get some metrics. I'll just see how they go. We got to fill that funnel right now, and get conversions to, when you're pre-revenue in a company and you're launching and spent this much money. I mean, we're well into 7 figures on this investment, like the CEO and I always say, revenue makes all the difference in the world.
It does. It does. Well,
we got to just start generating revenue. Oh yeah. We'll have fun doing it too.
You'll get there. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you all for listening or watching us, Gerry and myself. This has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.